Something tells me this is what they were listening to down on the plaza over the weekend as they were protesting on behalf of terrorists. Good morning. Happy Monday. It's great to be back on KCMO 95.7 FM. Hope you had an awesome weekend, and we appreciate you kicking off your week with us. So you missed it on Saturday? Don't worry, I did too. I was like living my life and, watching Claire's last soccer game and doing things that normal people like to do in this country. And by the way, normal things that people in this country take for granted. But down on the plaza, there were a few hundred individuals who were marching and trying to gain the support of Kansas City, Missouri city leaders for rescue efforts in Gaza. That's right. So this has now become a local political issue. If groups like KC Tenants and Free Palestine KC have their way. They led this march on Saturday. We told you about it Thursday of last week. And by the way, my message to the Kansas City, Missouri City Council is to ignore this. Ignore it. Don't take it for anything more than what it was, which is a few very far left. And a few, when I say a few, I mean 600 people's, I guess, a lot. KC Tenants does know how to mobilize. But in the grand scheme of things, 600 out of a city of what? 500,000. And by the way, it's not like you had to be a resident to go to the march. So maybe 600 out of, give or take, 2.5 million people in the metro. Color me unimpressed. So they show up there and they start, doing their chants on free Palestine, doing all that nonsense. And they're trying to get the attention of the Kansas City, Missouri City Council. Of course, they're doing all the usual nonsense. They're calling for ceasefires. There was a ceasefire. It ended on October 7th. They're calling for the support of Palestinian rights. They're calling for self-determination for the rescue of healthcare workers trapped in Gaza. How about the American citizens who are still being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza? Where's the march for them? I mean, it's terrible that there are healthcare workers currently trapped in Gaza. I think that's, something we can all agree on. But let's not forget, there are still Americans who no one talks about. President doesn't want to talk about them. No one wants to talk about them. Americans who are being held hostage and have been held hostage for over 6 months by Hamas since October 7th. Nobody wants to address who they are. Nobody wants to give them a face or a name because there would be political ramifications around that. But let's not forget, before we start talking about rescuing healthcare workers, we have Americans who are still in control by Hamas and have been since October 7th. That apparently this group doesn't march on behalf of, doesn't care about, I don't know. But Channel 9 KMBC was down there on the plaza on Saturday, and here's part of their report.
Protesters are also calling for the Kansas City City Council to pass a special action which would support the Kansas City-based Palestinian American Medical Association on the ground in Gaza. Some protesters say they've been in contact with people near combat zones, and they're told it's becoming nearly impossible to get medical aid.
This is absolutely a crisis that affects us, and we need our leadership to represent the people and to call for a ceasefire as we are now and as we have been for the last 7 months.
We're going to continue marching until the people in positions of power and our elected officials stand by the people.
Stand by
Free
the people.
Palestine KC, Al-Hadaf KC, KC Tenants, and Jewish Voices for Peace KC all helped in organizing that event.
How about that? Not the brightest bulbs. I'll leave it at that for now. When you talk about some of these folks who are down on the plaza protesting on Saturday afternoon on behalf of Hamas. But in the meantime, some of you might say that's going too far on behalf of Hamas. No, there's two sides to this war. There is Israel and there is Hamas. Now, you may say, what about the innocent Palestinian people? And, I would agree there are innocent people in the region who absolutely have got caught up in this, who have lost their lives. But there's one reason that has happened, and that is because of the actions of a terrorist organization back in October. That's why this has all happened. Let's be very clear. Tragedy has struck. Innocent people have died. It is horrific. It is inhumane. All of that is absolutely true. But you tie it back and have to point the finger back to the organization and the group that broke the ceasefire. And that was the terrorist organization that made a decision several months ago to go out and slaughter over 1,000 Israelis for no reason other than the fact that they were Jews. That's it. And, you know, this is probably not going to get a ton of attention, but Mary Sanchez put this up on X on Saturday afternoon. Mary was on Kansas City PBS's Weekend Review with me on Friday night, and she shared pictures here of marchers from the plaza ripping down the Israeli flag during this protest. And a local resident ran out, got the flag, and took it with him for safekeeping. But these protesters on the plaza, they want to tell you that they're all just peacefully protesting and they're all just, you know, doing their thing and rah-rah Palestine and whatever else. There's also clearly, as there always is in these protests, anti-Semitism that is running rampant. It gets hidden by local media or national media. They're not going to talk about some of that. Now, of course, you know, if the script was flipped and, you know, somebody was doing something that was perceived to be racist or something like that in a group of 600 people, man, it would be headline news today in local news. But ripping down Israeli flags and, you know, being anti-Semitic to in some aspects, that's not going to get nearly as much attention. It never has, it never will. And that's been one of the biggest problems with this entire movement. There has been rampant anti-Semitism across the board in large part. But, you know, everyone just kind of shrugs because, well, it's the Jews. So we just kind of, you know, we shrug and we move along. And it's one of the biggest problems when you look at how this entire movement has been brought together over the last 6-7 months. It has been rampant in anti-Semitism. But the media has chosen not to cover it. Chosen not to cover it. Not like, you know, forgotten. Not like, you know, missed it. Just chosen not to cover it, which tells you all you need to know about where their heads are at and what they want their coverage to ultimately be about. So my hope is that the Kansas City, Missouri City Council scoffs at all this. Although Jonathan Duncan was, I guess, involved in one of these protests. He's the councilman from the 6th District, that is South Kansas City. So way to go, South KC, on that front. He was involved with these protests over the weekend, but nobody else was in the city council as far as I can tell. And my hope is that they will ignore everything that happened on the plaza over the weekend and move on and like worry about filling potholes and picking up trash and, you know, funding the police and getting crime down and things of that nature. That would be nice from the Kansas City, Missouri City Council. Woo! This letter to Roger Goodell came down over the weekend from the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights. William Donahue, the president, penning this letter to Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, after the NFL put out that dopey statement the back half of the week about Harrison Butker and his commencement speech at Benedictine 2 weekends ago. And the NFL statement was as follows. Harrison Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger. That, of course, was the absurd statement from the NFL that still, all these days later, I don't understand. Where in the speech did Harrison Butker not advocate for inclusion? Where did he say anything about anybody not being included in professional life or anything? You know, the moral of the story was put your family and your marriage before your career. That was it in a nutshell, in case you missed it. But the NFL puts out such a ridiculous comment due to the faux far-left outrage on social media and in media at large, and they should be lambasted for it, and they are. And good on this letter from William Donahue, the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights, for writing this letter to Roger Goodell. And I'm going to read parts of this to you here. He writes in part, Dear Mr. Goodell, NFL Senior VP Jonathan Bean addressed the commencement speech by Kansas City Chiefs player Harrison Butker as follows. Harrison Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger. So by stigmatizing Butker, in effect excluding him, for defending Catholic moral theology, you are flexing your inclusion muscles. Nice to know what you think about Catholicism. That is the real issue. Too bad you couldn't cite a single sentence that was objectionable. He adds here, your credibility has been long shot. I will do what you cannot do. I will be specific in my criticism of the NFL. He goes on to use a couple of examples. Number one was the invitation to have Madonna perform at the 2012 Super Bowl. They spelled out some of their concerns about how Madonna has, promoted offensive lyrics, lewd behavior, and misappropriation of sacred symbols. He talked about in 2013 when, the NFL was starting to get leery of the name Redskins, and Roger Goodell said, if one person is offended, we have to listen. He notes that, Roger Goodell and his office didn't really listen to Catholics when they flooded his office with complaints about Madonna. He goes on to note, Nike. They announced a long-term extension with Nike, despite the fact that Nike uses slave labor in China, exploiting the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority. Yet in 2019, Roger Goodell lauded his relationship and the NFL's relationship with communist China. The letter goes on to note from the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights to Roger Goodell that was sent out Friday afternoon. Anti-Catholicism doesn't bother you, but racism does. The letter says in 2022, you authorized a host of anti-racism slogans to appear on the players' apparel. If you were consistent, you would condemn both expressions of bigotry, but you are not. And you certainly would not approve slogans like end abortion to appear on players' jerseys. He says earlier this year, the NFL paired with an anti-Catholic organization, GLAAD, during the Super Bowl. You celebrated a night of pride with GLAAD. This is the same organization that heralded the decision of the Dodgers to honor a viciously anti-Catholic group, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, at its June 16th, 2023 game. You may recall we covered that about a year ago at this time. He says there's no question you would veto any decision to give a platform to a group that celebrates gay bashing, but when it comes to allowing a group that bashes Catholics, you're okay with it. Harrison Butker speaks for millions of Americans, not all of whom are Catholic. The contempt that you have shown for him, Benedictine College, and Catholicism is repugnant. You are also a classic phony. Sincerely, William Donahue, President of the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights. Tell me how you really feel there, Bill. We're going to try to get Bill on the show today or tomorrow if we can. I've been reaching out to that organization trying to get him on because few people would have the stones to send a letter like that to Roger Goodell at NFL headquarters. But good on him for calling out the hypocrisy of the NFL. The NFL is happy to dive into social issues when they think it fits a certain agenda. But Harrison Butker giving a speech in his private capacity to a private Catholic college, we are committed to inclusion. And Harrison Butker wasn't. Now, interestingly, of course, the speech has been viewed incorrectly as some anti-female, anti-woman, get in the kitchen kind of a speech. And it never was that. But, for all the complaining and crying and moaning and bemoaning the fact that Harrison Butker is trying to live in a different world at a different time, I told you about a 2019 Gallup poll that was done. It's the only real data we've got on this that showed that women who have kids under the age of 18, the majority of them, by a 50 to 45 margin, would prefer in a perfect world to be home with their kids. That's what the polling from Gallup showed from 5 years ago. Well, now stumbled upon this article from The Atlantic that was done back in 2022. And it was written about COVID. It was written about how parents handled COVID. And here was the headline of the article: The Married Mom Advantage. The article goes on to note, I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but the summarization of the article was, quote, motherhood during the pandemic wasn't so miserable after all, but some moms did better than others. So it did this satisfaction survey of women aged 18 to 55. And guess when asked among the groups of childless women, mothers, married mothers, or unmarried mothers, guess who was the most satisfied with their lives? Married mothers had by far the most satisfaction with their lives.
Talk about a bombshell.
Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. Meantime, who was the least satisfied with their lives? Childless women. And by the way, that is one of the staple groups of the far left. So those who are least satisfied with their lives are most likely to find a home within the far left movement. What does that tell you? 38% of married mothers in this poll done by the American Family Survey and written about in The Atlantic, 38% of married mothers were completely satisfied with their lives. Of those childless women polled, 12.9%. Married mothers more than 3 times as likely as childless women to be completely satisfied with their lives. It's interesting how real-world data destroys almost every woke talking point, like every single time. And that's one of the things that, I think should drive a lot of us nuts, These crazy Marxist professors know the data. They know about how their policies of trying to destroy the family also destroy America. And they wholeheartedly endorse the policies anyway. But real-world data has become an inconvenience and an inconvenient truth to so many of these people. And this is just another example of that. 39% of married mothers say they're completely satisfied with life. 13% of childless women say the same. Harrison Butker was 100% correct about the message he gave to women and the message he gave to men, which is put your marriage and your family first, and the rest will follow. Nothing about it was ever controversial. And the more data we look up from the last few years, the more we realize he was right. And he will continue to be right, no matter what the media and social media continue to say about him and try to pin him with. Coming up on KCMO, there is a beef happening between the Missouri Attorney General and Mayor Quinton Lucas over that tweet that was put out from the Kansas City account last week that said, Harrison Butker doesn't live in Kansas City. He lives in Lee's Summit. Remember that tweet that got deleted on Thursday night? It was up for like 20 minutes from the official Kansas City government account. Well, the Attorney General is going after the city, trying to figure out what happened. The mayor sent a letter to the Attorney General basically claiming he's doing this as a dog whistle, more or less. We'll tell you where that beef stands. And by the way, the Attorney General will be here at 7:35 on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and streaming for free on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So it was last week, I want to say it was Wednesday night, might have been Thursday night, when Kansas City, Missouri's official X account, formerly Twitter, posted, Harrison Butker does not live in Kansas City. He lives in the city of, where he lives on the Missouri side. It's been blacked out by most places, but, point is, it was a wildly inappropriate tweet or X post to put up from an official government account. It officially read, just a reminder, Harrison Butker lives in the city of fill in the blank. And the city did apologize for the tweet, although they wrote it horribly. They wrote, we apologize for our previous tweet. It was shared in error. Real brain surgeons running the social media there for Kansas City, Missouri proper. So that was last Wednesday night. The city and Mayor Lucas said that he is going to investigate it and try to figure out who did it, and there will be repercussions. He said that on this show last Thursday morning, the day after when he was on. Now, what's happening, though, is that you are seeing the Attorney General for the state of Missouri go after this. He wants some answers as well. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who is going to be on the show in 40 minutes, he has asked Quinton Lucas to turn over any documents relating to the city's now deleted social media post. He says that basically he wants to get to the bottom of this because effectively, in his opinion, you've got city officials or people working on behalf of the city doxing private citizens. And, whether or not this is in a role for the attorney general, I don't know. I don't. I appreciate what he's doing. You know that no one has been more steadfast in their support of Harrison Butker over the last week and a half in this town than this show right here on KCMO 95.7. Do I think there's probably a little politics going on here for the attorney general? Yes, I do. I do. And I will also admit, and I will ask the attorney general about this, while at the same time he is defending state senators against their own social media doxing of a man from Olathe, who, remember, some of these state senators claimed was an illegal immigrant mass shooter when he was nothing but an Olathe man who happened to be drunk at the Super Bowl parade. How do you square that by then going after city officials who may be doxing Harrison Butker? I don't see how you can have it both ways, in fairness. And I like the attorney general. I think he's doing a good job. But it's confusing to me when he says we've got to stand up for the private citizen, that is Harrison Butker, against the government, while then backing politicians and backing government officials who went after an innocent man from Olathe, Kansas, just a couple of months ago. I don't think you can have it both ways. So that being said, here's some of the reporting from KCTV5 on this Quentin Lucas versus Andrew Bailey spat that is going on around Harrison Butker.
You see here, the mayor is accusing the AG of fanning the flames of some disturbing online rhetoric. And he is requesting that Bailey issue a public statement condemning the behavior of the trolls.
So far, Bailey has done no such thing. Instead, talking on Fox News tonight, he accused the mayor of, quote, playing the race card, and said it's ludicrous that his focus on religious freedom would in any way invoke the kind of things that have been multiplying since his initial criticism yesterday. The mayor wrote to him today, quote, your inflammatory rhetoric has gone beyond rational disagreements and has resulted in members of your online following directing vitriol, death threats, and harassment at specific Kansas City Black and female employees who had no involvement in the objectionable tweet. We searched X ourselves and found a specific Black female city employee with a background in social media who was targeted.
So I have seen that as well. Some of you have sent that to me. I mean, there is a lady who is a Black female that I found and many of you found on LinkedIn who is apparently, I don't know if it's in control or involved at a high level with the Kansas City social media accounts. I have not shared her name. I have not shared her picture because I have no idea if she sent the X post. And neither do you. None of us do. So I do think it's kind of ridiculous that people are like, we found her. She's the one who sent the tweet or sent the X post. It's like, stop. Okay. Frankly, yes, it's wildly inappropriate and there should be some ramifications. As I said on Thursday when this story came down, somebody should be fired over this because of how inappropriate it is to post that from a government account. But I'm not going to start doxing people that I don't know if they actually were the ones who posted it. And even if they were the ones who posted it, I'm not going to do that. But I think everybody is wrong here. Like, I think there's some hypocrisy on the part of Andrew Bailey. And yes, I do think Quentin Lucas, as you heard in this letter that he wrote to Andrew Bailey, saying, oh, people online are targeting this Black female. It's like, okay, well, if the person was a white guy, would you care as much too? Why does it matter that the person is a Black female? You either think that the doxing of this person is wrong or you don't. And if you think it's wrong, it shouldn't matter that it's a Black female. It should just matter that you're upset that one of your employees are being doxed. Now, should Andrew Bailey have to respond to trolls on social media or separate himself from trolls on social media that are going after this person? No, that's not his job. Because anybody of any political persuasion can be accused of having trolls who are doing their bidding for them. That the Attorney General does not need to respond to unnamed, faceless, nameless trolls on social media. Because if that were the case, every politician would have to do that. Every politician would have to denounce trolls that may support their causes or support their beliefs. So why should Andrew Bailey have to do it? That is ridiculous. And there is a part of this that does feel like it's, pandering and using race as a reason to stop this investigation. But I don't think, the AG is totally in the right here either. I think that there's some hypocrisy on his end, given what he is doing with these state senators who also accused an innocent man in Olathe of being an illegal immigrant mass shooter. And that's why this conversation with the AG coming up at 7:30 is going to be one that you do not want to miss here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. When we come back after 7 o'clock, are you getting set to send your kid off to college? Whether it's now or soon in the next couple of years? Well, area colleges want a tuition hike. Should they get one? We'll tell you what they want and how much next on KCMO 95.7 FM. Oh, thank you very much for that, Mark. Very well done. I know graduations across the region here over the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's a high school graduation. Maybe it's a college graduation. Maybe you got one of those overpriced advanced degrees that you graduated with. Maybe you got your seventh PhD. You're 32 years old. You're sufficiently wokeified now, and you're going to teach the next generation, John.
Shake with the right, take with the left.
Yeah, that's right. Good memory, my man. Good memory. Think Joe Biden got that down when he was given the Morehouse College?
I hope they didn't leave that up to him.
Oh, brother. If you missed it, Joe Biden gave a hell of a speech at Morehouse College over the weekend. But anyway, all 6 of Kansas's state universities are proposing tuition increases for the 2024-2025 school year, citing inflation, declining enrollment, and staff retention costs. Only in academia do you say, wow, less people want my product. It's time to raise the price. That's basically what they're doing, right? If your business is getting hit and things are tough, what do you typically do? You got to make your price more competitive. That's what happens in the private sector. Or you have to, unfortunately, make some staff cuts, right? You've got to try to do more with less. It's not a situation that anybody wants to find their company in, but it is the reality in the private sector. But when you're in higher education, really any education for that matter, what is the answer? The answer is just, well, we need more tax dollars. That's what we need. So all 6 of the Kansas state universities want tuition increases. This is from the Kansas Reflector. And, of course, some of you just finishing up college, some of you getting set to send your kids off to college, some of you a year or two away from sending your kids off to college. And I just want to make sure you've got these numbers here. So at KU, Jeff DeWitt, Chief Financial Officer, says KU is proposing a 3.5% tuition increase for both undergraduate and graduate students. DeWitt chalked the change up to inflation pressures, market to pay to retain faculty and staff, facility maintenance, and cybersecurity and technology costs. The change would add $28 million in tuition revenue for Lawrence and Edwards campuses. Meantime, at Kansas State, they're looking for a proposed 2.8% tuition increase for undergraduates and graduate students. That would generate about $5.5 million in additional funds. Wichita State wants a 3.9% tuition increase for all students. That'll generate $3.5 million. Pittsburgh State, 3.5% increase. What else? Fort Hays State wants a 6% tuition increase, citing uncertain future enrollment. Maybe then you should wonder why nobody wants to enroll or less people want to enroll. And if your answer is, gosh, we better raise the price 6%, I don't think you're really understanding how this whole free market thing works. Gosh, no one wants our product. I know what we should do. Raise the price 6%. Said nobody in the private sector ever.
That's why they're all trying to do it at once, so that not one is, the only one
looking like the bad guy, I guess. I think that's part of it, too. They probably also are going to want to get some more money from the state at some point. I'm sure that's going to be coming. But this is exactly the antithesis of what you actually do when your business is struggling. We need more kids to come to our college to get degrees, and we need to make it more appealing to them to come here to get degrees. We want to entice them to come here to get degrees. What do? We raise the price, John.
Well, now it's coming for academics. You got to recruit like sports, right?
Well,
you got fewer people. If you want the better students, you got to go get them.
You got to go get them.
They're not sitting here going, oh, can I please come in?
Yeah. What are you offering them?
Right.
What are you offering these kids if you're Fort Hays State, if you're Emporia State? And I want these colleges to all do well at the state level, but there's an awakening going on across America. Parents and students themselves are saying, is it in my best interest to go to these colleges, to spend 4 years there? Is it necessary based on what I want to do with myself and what my skill sets are? And a lot of them are realizing, okay, a 4-year degree is nice, but it may not be necessary for everybody, John.
Maybe we'll get name, image, and likeness rights for biology students.
Right? That's right. Oh, man, I could see that. This undergrad student in looking to be in the medical field is sponsored by...
Endorses Pyrex beakers.
That's right. I could see that.
Pfizer.
Yeah. Oh, that's a controversial one right there. I'm not taking the Pfizer endorsement. You can't buy me off. Who do you think I am, Travis Kelce? Oh, man. Who apparently, according to reports, got like 20 mil for that Pfizer endorsement. So go figure. But anyway, that's what's happening across the board. And, these colleges, listen, like Emporia State, the tuition at Emporia State is $7,000 for in-state. At Fort Hays, it's $5,500 for the tuition. Now, that's, I think, without the room and board, but still, those are not unreasonable tuition costs for an in-state school. KU and K-State are somewhere around the $10,000 mark for tuition. So, those aren't numbers that you say to yourself, oh, my gosh, how is anybody ever going to afford this? This is completely unreasonable. The Ivies are pushing $70,000, $80,000. Now, I know most people can't get into those schools, but you get the point. Some of the high-end private schools are now pushing $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. So I don't think our costs are out of control here for the state schools in Kansas. But it still begs the question, they are basically looking to plug a hole in a ship that is sinking. When there's a dozen other holes in the ship, they're looking to just plug this one hole and think it's going to buy them some more time. When the broader question they have to be asking themselves right now is, how do we make this degree more attractive to people? Because the other thing I looked up is the acceptance rate for these colleges. And most of the state colleges in Kansas, from KU to K-State to Fort Hays to Emporia to Wichita State, have acceptance rates between 88 and 95%. That's base, it's basically open enrollment. When you're pushing 95% on the acceptance rate, that's basically open enrollment. You're almost taking anybody. Now, of course, what you do with your degree when you get there is ultimately what matters. But if you're at that point where you're accepting 95% of your students and your enrollment is still projected to be down, then you need to ask yourself, what are we doing wrong? Not say to those who are going to go there, we need more of your money. Because the marketplace is speaking and you're not listening. You're not. You're not listening to what the free market is telling you. And only in, public sector spaces do people hear this and say, you know what the answer is? Take more money from the customer. That's not the answer. Because all you're doing is kicking the can down the road. You're not looking at the long-term issues that your business model is facing. And there are a lot of long-term issues that the business model of higher education is facing today. 7:14, happy Monday. It is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General, is going to be here at the bottom of the hour on KCMO. Do not miss that conversation. Ken Coleman next hour from The Ramsey Show. But next, this is incredible parody that was done was posted. I saw it for the first time on President Trump's social media pages. Do not miss this great parody off of Tom Petty and Joe Biden coming up on KCMO 95.7 FM. You guys are good for a Monday on the text line, 913-408-7957. This story we were just talking about, Kansas universities are all requesting tuition hikes. KU, K-State, Emporia State, Wichita State, Fort Hays State. They all want tuition hikes of anywhere from 2.5% to 6% in the case of Fort Hays. And they're doing it, and they're all saying, yeah, enrollment's down, so we got to make up the money somewhere. That's not how this works. Not how it's working. Tammy and Shawnee, what's going on?
Good morning. I am concerned that young people are being sold a bill of goods that's not true. The fact is most employers do not care what university you get your degree from. They really don't. All they care about is what can you do to contribute to our organization to help us accomplish our mission. That's what they care about. Dr. Randy Watson, a few years ago, he's the Commissioner of Education. He came in after doing a, quote, walking tour of Kansas, and he talked to employers all over the state. And resoundingly, employers said that what they were looking for were employees that could problem solve and communicate and work together collaboratively. And that's what they're looking for.
Yep.
That's the skill. You don't necessarily learn that in college, of course, but for people that want to work in the skilled trades, they can, for example, a welder just starting after finishing his certification at a trade school can begin at $75,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's some pretty good money.
With a fraction of the debt, if any debt at all. That's exactly right,
Exactly.
Tammy. Thank you for the call. I mean, when's the last time you asked your doctor where he or she went to college? And if there's ever a profession where you would care where someone went to college, it'd be a doctor. You ever ask your doctor where he went to college or she went to college? I haven't. You really care? These are the issues that higher education has got to figure out sooner rather than later because their business model is starting to collapse in front of them. And I still think college can be incredibly valuable. I mean, saving for our kids' colleges and doing as much of that as we can and doing the 529 plans, I think that's good to do and good to have those plans. But it doesn't mean it's right for everybody. And it doesn't mean the colleges also don't need to start getting their costs under control. And that's something that needs to be noted as well. I just put this up on my X page. It's more about public education across the nation. And it's a tweet that was just put up from Corey DeAngelis. And it shows here that over the last 20 plus years, going back to the year 2000, student population has grown 8% in this country for public schools. The administrative staff has grown 88%. The percentage change in principals and assistant principals since 2000 has increased 37%. The percentage of teachers has increased 8%. That's on par with the percentage increase in students. Students are up 8% over the last 20 years. But we have 88% more of the administrative staff. The government school system has become more of a jobs program for adults than an education initiative for kids. That's what's going on here, it looks like. And I've got the data. It's up right now on my X page at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. So I was doing a 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. feeding on Saturday morning, and I just opened my phone, and I see this post from Donald Trump on his Truth Social, and it was a parody song that was done by Jimmy Fallon of Fox News on Joe Biden playing off of Tom Petty. And I'm sitting there feeding a bottle to Charlotte at 3 a.m. laughing. And she's like, what are you doing, man? Hold the bottle straight, would you please? Trying to suck this thing down and go back to sleep. Come on now. But I couldn't help but just laugh as I'm watching this great parody. And by the way, Trump shared it on his social media accounts. Take a listen.
He's an old guy, has dementia, can't lead us, and the country is screwed. Tells some big lies, barely speaks English, sniffs children, and their mom's hair too goes the wrong way. When he leaves his speeches, gets lost each day in the White House yard, All the Dems say that we should re-elect him. How can he run when walking is hard? And Joe keeps falling, yeah, he keeps falling, keeps falling, yeah, he keeps falling, and Joe keeps falling, yeah, he keeps falling, keeps falling, yeah, he keeps falling.
Oh, that is just brilliant from the team over at Jimmy Fallon. And Trump sharing that on his social media pages is just the most Trump-ish thing ever. There is no love lost between these two guys. Like, they can't stand each other. Bill O'Reilly has talked about it before in his morning update. We may have never seen two presidential candidates despise each other at the level of these two guys. It is just unbelievable. And it's not going to end anytime soon. In fact, it's only going to get worse ahead of that June 27th debate. 9:20. Welcome back on a Monday on KCMO. So I shared this on my Facebook page this morning, and I didn't think it was going to get the amount of traction that it's gotten. Dozens of you have commented on this post. And I shared a post from Jess and Jim's Steakhouse here in town. And it was just a photo from Jess and Jim's, and it says here, cash is king. Cash is our preferred method of payment. With cash, we retain 100% of its value. The big banks receive 0%. The card processing companies receive 0%. They write here, support your local independent business by paying with cash. Let's keep cash alive. Jess and Jim's Steakhouse in town posted that on their Facebook page, and I shared it this morning. And, it was a fairly harmless post. I said, what do you think? Keep cash alive, but who still carries it? And many of you, as small business owners and consumers, chimed in here. First of many of you are pointing out kind of the Dave Ramsey model, which is that if you use cash, you spend less cash. You spend less money in general. When you're handing over hard, cold cash, you spend less of it than if you just swipe it on a card. That's true. Some of you are also noting, the credit card processing fees are running 2.5% to 4.5% of the transaction total. That oftentimes comes right out of the pockets of small businesses. Now, some of you are responding to that, and you're saying that these businesses already raised their prices to compensate for it, at least the good business people. I just know this. I don't carry cash. I don't. And, I'm frugal. We don't spend more than we have. It's not the way we've chosen to live our lives as a family. I don't just, frivolously swipe things on my card and hope I can, pay off my credit card and hope for the best. That's not how we live our lives. I just don't have cash. I used to have a lot of cash back in my college days and post-college when I was, working at golf courses and caddying and working for tips. Man, I was flush with cash. I looked like a drug lord, the amount of cash I'd have on me.
I've come around the way you are. In fact, I've been carrying this $25 in my wallet for like 3 weeks because I don't remember I have cash.
Yes.
Seriously.
No, I agree. And even $25, like, you go out with somebody to McDonald's or Red Lobster, you ain't covering.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money.
You ain't covering the $25, man.
No, that's no kidding.
You're not doing it. So it's like you've got to have a couple $100 of cash on you to probably really have it for anything meaningful. And then it's like, well, if I don't have the cash, I got to go to a bank. It's just the most valuable thing we have is our time. And taking time out to drive to the bank, to go get cash, I admit, with 3 little kids, I'm not taking 15 minutes out of my day to go get cash. I'm just not doing it. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I don't do it. But if it does help small businesses, I'm happy to start at least thinking about it. Not that I'm necessarily going to do it, but I will start thinking about it. But I also will say this. If you're a small business and you're saying, pay us cash, but then you're also raising your prices 2.5% to 4% to cover credit card fees, then, am I really going to go out of my way to allow you to make an extra 2.5% to 4%? Because that's problematic as well.
I will tell you, as a father of 3, once you start carrying cash and you can lay your money down on the table and say, keep the tip, we out.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for it.
Well,
where'd she go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
And then they take off with the card and you're waiting to sign it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know?
In the meantime, the kids are going nuts.
Father of 3 and laying the money down. There it is. Come and get it. I'm gone.
You know, here's the thing, though. And it's just because I inherently have mistrust.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid to now leave cash without telling the person I left cash.
Absolutely.
You know, like I will say, hey, and I don't do it much anymore, like I've been saying. But when I did at least try to tip in cash, I would say, hey, I'm going to leave cash here. I would say that to the server. I'm leaving cash here for you because, you know, in this world, I would be afraid of either, you know, a busboy pocketing the tip as he walks by. Or, you know, once again, I hate to think like this, but just some scumbag seeing cash on a table and taking it.
That's likely. That's more likely. I mean, the busboy may be the guy to pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel kind of weird, like, is he supposed to? Yeah, no, he goes and throws it in the jar. That's the deal. So, well, like you, I do the same thing. I kind of be conspicuous. I tuck it under a water glass so it doesn't blow away.
Yes.
And I'm kind of dragging away from the table, pointing. Like
That's what I do.
I think that's necessary.
And it's the world we live in, where if I do it, I will say, hey, cash on the table. So either way, though, John, to bring it back around to your point, I've got to take the time to find the server to tell him I put cash
you might
down.
As well have gave him a card.
Exactly. So that's where I'm more likely, if I'm going to do this, especially with the cost of restaurants now. If you want to go to a decent restaurant, have a couple of drinks, I mean, you're all in for minimum $100. So what I'm more likely to do, I feel like, is at least tip in cash. Because then I know the server's getting taken care of. I believe probably in part the cost of the meal is marked up 2.5% to 4.5% for the credit card processing fees. I'll assume that. But if I can get the cash for the server into their pockets, I'd much rather do that. So I think where I'm trending right now on this is to at the very least start carrying cash for tips. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when you got 3 little kids, we're not doing a lot of going out to eat these days.
Well, there's that.
You know?
My wife likes to keep track of what we spend. So with the cashing, then she want to like write down, hey, you spent $50 here. So
we do that
makes
too.
it a little bit tougher.
Yeah, it makes it tough. That's a good point. It does make it tougher versus looking at your credit card statement. But we do that too. We got, you know, it's not the, I know Dave Ramsey has an app for that, but we've got kind of an Excel spreadsheet we use. And we do the same thing there, Mark. What are you laughing at back there?
Back in my day, we carried cash and a penny brought you a piece of gum. So
yeah.
You kept track of it back in the day. It's not that hard.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we try to do it. But, man, I'll tell you what. Mm-hmm. If we can help our small businesses by at least tipping in cash, I'm all about it. But we got dozens of comments on this on Facebook, and it really took off. And some of you are also noting on the text line and elsewhere, it feels like a generational thing, too. You know, I mean, I know my father-in-law, the guy's always got cash on him. And he thinks we're crazy to not have cash on us. But, you know, I know what I won't do. I'm not going to go back to the debit card because I got my debit card number stolen from me when I was living in Oklahoma 10 years ago. And, you know, I got wiped out of a few grand in my debit card account. Like, I don't want to go down that road either.
Well, and that's the funky thing about carrying $200. You know, if I lose that $25 I forgot I had, you know, if I lose $200, I'm not happy.
No, not a happy camper at all.
And I mean someone taking it, not me losing it.
Yes, exactly.